Welcome to Fearless Females, where ambition meets resilience. Meet your guide, Lorie Jones, president of Fidelis Wealth Advisors. Join her and remarkable women executives as they uncover the triumphs and transformative moments shaping extraordinary careers. Ready to be fearless? Let the journey begin.
Welcome to Fearless Females. Thank you so much for joining us again today. I'd like to give a shout out to our sponsor, Fidelis Wealth Advisors. We really appreciate all that you make possible and this program. So today we're speaking with Georgina. She is the executive director of the Wasatch Community Gardens. And before we get into that interview, I just wanted to say how amazing I thought her work was. We were chatting just a little bit before I started the interview. And do you know that she literally helps grow food, fresh fruits and vegetables for those people who don't have enough food. And I said most of the time they get a can of peas or some corn, some canned corn, but they are making it possible through their community efforts to support those people in getting fresh produce. It's amazing. Go to their website on Wasatch Community Gardens or reach out to Georgina afterwards. They're just doing amazing work. So let's get started. So today we're here with Georgina Griffith-Yates, who is the executive director of the Wasatch Community Gardens. And I'm so excited to be talking to you today. Thank you so much for doing this for us, Georgina.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
So I wanted to start out with a question that's near and dear to me. I'm a reader. I love reading anything and everything I can get my hands on. What is your favorite book?
Okay, this was the hardest question you sent me because I am also an avid reader. I think last year I averaged 3 books a week. I was just so on it last year.
Yeah.
So I picked 3 from last year.
All right.
My all-time favorite is amazing too. So last year I picked Homegoing by Yaa Gyasi. Incredible. It's an epic tale that spans 300 years from Ghana to New York, and it's gorgeous. It's a fiction.
Okay.
The next is a nonfiction, Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. Wow. She really convinced me that I need to slow down and just take care of myself and my earth.
I love it.
Which was really beautiful. And then you can probably sense a theme here. My third book was Rest is Resistance by Tricia Hersey. And so she has a social media platform called the Nap Ministry. And it's all about, how rest and sleeping and taking care of yourself is a form of resistance kind of to this fast-paced environment we find ourselves in so often.
Oh, I love that. Those are great suggestions. And we were just chatting about how I'm excited about kind of helping our entrepreneurs, our women executives kind of slow down. And maybe those that are listening to this podcast, maybe they start out on the right foot and they take time for themselves so that they don't get in that position where they're just overwhelmed and overworked. I love that. That's great. Thank you.
Happens to the best of us.
So tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you get where you are today?
Yeah. Well, I I don't know, maybe not most kids, but I was like, I'm just going to be a doctor when I grow up. And so my grandpa was a chemist and my sister was a chemist. I'm like, great, I'll go do pre-med at, my undergrad.
Uh-huh.
And I started that and I could not stand it. I was like, why do I have to get up at 7 a.m. for a class about biology? Like I am biology. I'm a human. I was just so disinterested that I quickly switched over to art, which is the opposite of becoming a doctor. And I absolutely loved being an art major. And then I took on another major, which was family and child development, which has taken a long time for me to confidently say that I was a child and family development major. I feel like there's a stigma to it that I carried for sure, that I'm like, I'm just doing this because I don't know. It was really interesting, but it was so focused on community and community building through families. And so that really is how I started getting interested in the nonprofit sector, was through that major. And I love my art major and it helps me and I get to do fun things all the time. But that major really changed my view on my role in my community growing up. And so I moved out to Utah. That was in Virginia, moved out to Utah And I said, I have to get a job that requires a degree because I went to school. It has to be in my field because I learned a lot. And so I applied for so many jobs out here kind of in the sector, and I got one. And on the first day I was getting in my car, and it was for, a girl's home, and it was a cool job. And in my gut, I just knew, I just had this gut feeling it wasn't what I was supposed to do. And I'm going into detail because this story was so foundational for me and so transformational. I listened to myself. I was like, if I'm feeling sick to my stomach to go to this place and it's not the work, what is it? And so I don't feel good about it. And within 48 hours, a job that I'd been holding out for a while called, and it was an education-based job that totally needed what I went to school for. And I started at the bottom of that nonprofit, and I ended up staying there for 8 years, and it totally shaped how I really wanted my career to evolve because I got myself into a position where I was needed. And that allowed me to ask for things. And so I asked for them to send me to school and to pay for my master's degree, and that I would stay on a little while. And I did. And so that master's degree in public administration at the University of Utah was pretty life-changing, and met incredible people through that, learned about Wasatch Community Gardens through that, which is where I work now. And so after 8 years of working at that last nonprofit and working my way up and getting into program design and, governance and people management and all of that, I took the leap to become an executive director for the first time. I started when I was 29, which I felt very weird about. I was like, if I could just be 30, I feel like for whatever reason, that number, I was like, then it's okay. But that's so silly now that I look back and think, I'm like, it doesn't matter how old you are. You could be 22. It doesn't matter if you have the skills and you have the desire and the passion,
you're ready.
You can do whatever you set your mind to. Yeah. So that's a little bit about my story and how I got here. And now I've been the executive director for 2.5 years.
I love that. I love that you listen to your gut. That's something that sometimes if you don't, you find yourself in situations where it just isn't a great fit for you. It just wouldn't have put you on the life path you needed to go.
Totally. It would be very different now.
So, and this journey, as you're coming to being an executive director at a really young age, what is the best investment that you made in yourself? Is there something that you can say, hey, I am so glad I did that? Maybe I was just listening to your gut, but best thing you did.
I was talking to my marketing director. I was like, let's go through these questions together. And she was like, if you know yourself, then you can answer this question. Thank you. That's very helpful. And we read this question, and the first thing that came to mind, which I don't know, this might be silly, is my wife. And my relationship is honestly the best investment I've made in myself and maybe I think of my marriage and my wife because it was such a huge goal of mine, a really big goal. And I got this advice when I was a teenager, and I worked so hard, to make this my reality, that if you can't love yourself, how can you carry love for others? How can you carry love for your community, for the work that you do, and be authentic and have it be sustainable and not a mask or something you're trying to cover up or ignore? And so, we worked really hard. My wife and I were like, we have to love ourselves before we ever get married. And then we did. And so, that investment, which I've done a lot of other really cool things. I've gotten a master's program, which was a great investment. I've joined different professional affiliations, but that's really just anecdotal to your field, right?
Right.
And I definitely encourage that. But I think for me, and something that I can share with others is, wow, I know myself. That's going to continue to change. I know myself and I love myself. And so with that, I can go forward as my complete authentic self. And I've been in jobs where I didn't enter that way, and it was very difficult. I'm queer. And in one of my jobs, when I started, they told me not to tell anyone. They're like, just don't tell anyone and you'll be fine. And so it's this authenticity to self, I think, opens doors.
I love that. I love that you're talking about too, the idea that if you are comfortable and you love who you are and you know who you are, that you're able to share that with the community. It feels like that is something that family is kind of like a universal concept. I found it throughout my life, throughout my career, and throughout my world. And I like that you're able to find that authenticity. I like that word, the being able to be who you are and bring your whole self to work.
Yeah. It's what I live by now. And I think I've been able to find that. I mean, I think we all crave that too, that ability to just be real with each other. And so as I've worked with people, it's kind of opened up connecting with others as well. Like, man, and I tell this to my staff all the time. I'm like, we are all humans living a human experience. And that changes every single day.
Yeah.
And so let yourself be human, before you list out coworker, employee, or anything like that. Like, make sure humans at the top.
Yeah, who you really are. Is there any particular way that you've found, like a book? Is there a checklist somewhere I can check off that tells me how to learn to love myself? Is there anything I can read to do this?
I wish. Oh my gosh. I feel like, okay, so I'll tell you my favorite book of all time is a fictional book. It's called The History of Love. And it's just love in so many forms. And this is maybe what I want to share is like, I had dated people and had people in my life where it, like, that wasn't the goal. And so I think it's so much more of like and you don't have to have a partner to find authenticity. But for me, that was my checklist and that was my book, right? I was like, I know that I need this for myself and I have a deadline right here because I have someone I'm so in love with and want to marry. But there's so many different ways to find that in yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think just I started taking note of when I found myself, what, the term I use is masking, just was trying to be something different or trying to hide something. And every time I did that, I just took literal note in my phone. What in this circumstance is making me do this,
Yeah.
And then just working through that. And it's never ending, right?
Yeah.
It's still.
I think if you find yourself making those notes more often, then maybe you haven't found your tribe wherever you're at, right?
Yeah.
Where you're saying, I'm using my mask quite a bit in this situation.
Yeah. And that can happen in your career, right? Where you're like, wait, I'm got educated for this. I'm getting paid for it. I don't. Like, it's not bad work, but what's missing? And I think, there have been studies about millennials. And as a millennial, I like to read these studies about how from housing to jobs, it's all very different for this generation, but how no matter what field we're in, we need connection to the work we're doing. We need that authentic connection. And I think we find that authentic connection when we see it feeding back into our souls and our community and our family. And it can be not like, it's very easy to be like, yeah, I can see how food does that, but I don't think it matters. I think you can be a pilot or a finance manager or, whatever that means for you and still find that meaning and that connection.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I love my job so much.
Mm-hmm.
And the part that I love the most about it is when I help someone come to financial peace of mind. When they walk out of my office and they are like, thank heavens, we feel like we're going in the right direction. We feel so confident about what we're doing. And that transcends, like you said, your specific job that you're doing to this overarching feeling of, I have made the world a better place today.
I can talk about this kind of stuff and it can feel really just pretty. And that sounds nice, but that's not real. The reality is if you get a job, you take it and it's X, Y, and Z. And, that's all true too. And you have to hold both at the same time. And if it isn't your career that's giving you that because you just can't right then, that's okay too. And so I think we have to try and work for better for us and for women in the field, in any field, but in their careers, and also understand that we're working in very difficult systems that we have to pay our bills at the end of the day.
Yeah. There are times I have to do paperwork and I don't find much joy and fulfillment in that either. So you're right. I like that thought. So what is the worst advice you've ever gotten? And did you take it?
Came from a man. Yeah, I got really bad advice for a while about fundraising. And that's my bread and butter now, right? This is what I do besides all the other stuff. And I was told people don't want to give money to causes. They want to give money to their friends. So you have to arm twist them. If you can figure out how to twist arms, then you can figure out how to fundraise. And it didn't sit well with me. And so at that time, I decided, well, I guess I'm never going to fundraise. And it's never going to happen for me. And it was pretty devastating to me at the time because I was a program manager at the time and a nonprofit, it's higher pay and there's just a lot more within fundraising. I was really excited to kind of get there. And it was crushing to me. Just this like, oh shoot, because I know me and I know I won't twist arms. And so it's not a field for me. And then I continued living. And when I started this job, I had this team of women who all different ages, all different experience. And the word that comes to mind is just empowerment. I started here and they were so empowering because I was so scared to fundraise. I was so scared. It's like, I don't know how to twist arms. How am I going to fundraise here? I told the board when they were interviewing me that I could for sure do it. And, all this stuff. And they're like, well, what feels good to you? What feels good to you? And I said, well, I don't know yet because I haven't done fundraising, but all I want to focus on right now is just making really good relationships based on the work. Is this whole conversation, right? Do we make relationships based on the person who's running the org or based on the work so that when that person leaves, it's not this hole? And nonprofits easily fall into that. If I can just get all my friends to donate, we can get through this year, but that's not sustainable and it's not fair to the team. It's not fair to your staff. And so, so I didn't take the advice because I physically, emotionally, spiritually, I could not. I'm not capable of twisting arms.
Yeah.
But I did hold it for a long time, which was really hard for me because it felt like the end of what I thought was advancement in my career.
Uh-huh.
And so being able to take that and let go of it and see a different way. And I think women in fields all over the place do this all the time. And it's not just fundraising. It's like something that was set up to be, only a man can do this, or only if you are aggressive, or only if you take on these qualities can you get to this point. And yeah, we'll let you in, but you got to do it that way, And I think we come up against that when it's like, oh, what if I just did this? If I said, come learn and tell me how you want to get engaged. It's been incredible. I mean, I started 2.5 years ago. We had a $1.2 million budget. We just passed a $2.4 million budget, and we raised $4 million on top of that over the last 2 years. And so it's been, absolutely incredible.
Congratulations. And you did it through building a relationship with the work that you were doing.
Yep. And the community, right? And and the work can speak for itself. I don't need to twist someone's arm to see its merit.
That's really interesting. I was told that's part of the story of where I got where I'm at is I was told girls don't do math, girls don't do finance. And so I showed up at work as the secretary the first day. And sure enough, everyone that was a secretary looked like me and everyone else was a man. So of course, then in my mind, well, I guess girls don't do finance.
No, I guess you're right.
I held that belief for a while. It wasn't anything that anyone else told me exactly. It's just that's what I held and held on to it for way too long. Yeah.
I don't think, honestly, how we're conditioned as women, especially women in the workforce, I don't think it takes much to crush us, honestly. And not in we're at the mercy of men or, these things, but it often takes so much courage to enter those spaces in the first place that if someone says your worst fear pretty quickly, that's all you need to be like, yep, okay, I'll stay in my corner, And I think it can be really easy to just stay painted in your own corner as long as people keep telling you that's where you belong.
That's why I like the idea of being fearless. I'm not fearless. I definitely think of all the things and scary things that could happen, but trying anyway, even though I'm scared. That's fearless, if you ask me.
Totally. My wife and I talk about this all the time about something. And I think I was just raised this way. So I think my parents that they're like, failure is not an end. It's just a try, so failure is just trying and trying and trying. And so it's nothing negative.
So what about regrets? Do you have a situation in your career that you maybe would have handled differently? Or what kind of lessons did you learn from that? Speaking of, it's not a failure, it's just a learning experience.
Yeah. One thing that came to mind pretty quickly is I used to run these pretty big donor events, and I had this incredible team of women who were kind of the behind the scenes at the different stations for this event, that type of thing. And just as that org grew bigger, we got more donors that we weren't familiar with. And so we couldn't really tell what the vibe was going to be. We didn't have alcohol at these events. And so after a while, we got these donors who would come in drunk beforehand. They'd pregame or whatever for the donor event.
I didn't even know that was a thing for fundraisers.
And we had a couple of events where some of the men who came that we weren't as familiar with harassed my team members, either saying verbally, they just were saying things that were incredibly inappropriate and my staff should never have to go through. And at the time, my reaction to that was to change how I assigned out my staff and not change the fact that the behavior that was happening, right? I was like, okay, if this is going to happen, then only my male employees will be stationed and the women will be, I was like, just problem solving. And I have regret with that, because if that would happen now, I mean, that was years ago, but if that happened now, I mean, those men would be crying by the time I was done talking to them. And so it's, a great learning experience. I'm still close with those women. By the end of my leaving there, we had kicked out those men and they weren't invited back. But yeah, I think that bravery, I was just like, am I gonna lose my job if I tell the boss that the donors aren't being nice?
Yeah, that's a really hard situation, and one that we run into all the time, no matter what profession we're in. Where do we stand up for ourselves? Do we stand up for our, if they hit the mama bear in me, I definitely, they can't be mean to my people.
No.
So, but that's been a long time learning that too. When you're young, a lot of times it's really hard to take that stance.
Yeah, totally. And when you're like in it too, like men were saying things to me and I'm like, it's for the org, it's for the kids, it's for the, you can just write off behavior like that in any way possible. But it's unacceptable.
I like that. So have you run into any of those situations like recently? Does it still happen, and do you treat it differently?
Yeah, different org, different donor base. Haven't dealt with that in the same way, but have dealt with harassment of staff members, and the perpetrators don't associate with this org anymore.
Yeah, I like it. One of the companies we work with has a strict policy: we don't work with jerks. And and I'm like, yeah, that's exactly right. So don't be a jerk.
It's really interesting. Kind of my leadership style is very like humanist. It's like very human centered. And so it's really interesting, maybe even for my staff. And I'm like, we're all humans and experiences, and these things happen all the time. Things happen and life happens. And then something like that happens. I'm like, no, this is not part of the human experience. Get out of here. I'm taking care of this. This is not part of the human experience I'm talking about.
So if you could go back and talk to your younger self, 20, 21, 22, what would you tell her?
Yeah, I think first I still feel like I'm 20 and 21 for the rest of our lives, or just every age we've ever been. I think what I would say is to recognize and not waste time on systems of oppression. Just unless your work is to dismantle those systems of oppression, don't give them credence, whether that's getting paid less than your male coworkers, that type of system, whether it's inadequate healthcare, that kind of system, whether it's promotions or what is expected of me. I don't need to adapt to be more of a dude to get in with the group to succeed, where I feel like that's a tactic that I held on to. I was like, okay, I can hang with the bros. Like, we can do this. No, I don't need to work within their system of oppression. I can build, a team of men and women and non-binary individuals who are so comfortable working in each other's realities instead of trying to work within a reality that someone else created.
So how would you tell her to do that?
Trust yourself. I think that's a big one. Don't operate from a scarcity mindset. That's what I would say. Don't operate from a scarcity mindset. Every interaction you're in, every job you're in, every room, don't think, if I don't, then nothing will be left. Or if I don't do this, then I can't. It's not how the world works. That's not how the earth and nature works. The more you can give, the more you can, receive.
The idea of giving freely, because and trusting that will come back to you.
Mm-hmm. Instead of trying to listen to your gut and compare that to what your brain is telling you have to do to fit in.
Do you think, I'm going to play devil's advocate for just a minute. But do you think that she would get hurt if she did that, if she was giving freely and trying to have this abundance and assume that everyone else was abundant too?
Yeah, there's so much hurt in that. There's so much more hurt when you don't protect yourself and when you don't. And I was just talking about this with a coworker because I had to put my dog down this past weekend. It's the worst, right? And that's also part of life. This death. Sorry, tell me what we were talking about. I just lost.
Would she get hurt? Would she get hurt?
Right, thank you. Yeah, so I was talking to my coworker about how much this kind of loss that just happens in life hurts, and how if you don't open yourself up, and this is just, I mean, boilerplate, but you have to remind yourself all the time, if you don't open yourself up, then for all the incredible things, you know, that hurt doesn't exist, but all those incredible things don't either.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think I'd get hurt. I think I'd be embarrassed. I think I would not have pleased as many people.
Yeah.
And I also think I still would have ended up here.
Yeah.
So
what scared you the most when you started your career?
Not knowing everything. I feel like, and that might be personal to me, it's like this major Capricorn or something, but I'm like, I have to know everything so that if anyone asks me anything, I can answer and I don't look dumb and like a dumb little girl, right? That was like my thing. And I use that phrase all the time. Like I'd call my mom, like, I just don't want to seem like a dumb little girl. It's like, physically, I'm very small. Like, I'm not an imposing person. And it just scared me so much. And so I was like, I need to know everything. And I would just work overtime to understand systems and all, things like that. And my approach is very different now, where I think that was a very individualist approach, which is all I had at my fingertips at that time. When I'm like, oh, if I don't know something, I hire someone, I partner with someone, or I teach myself, or have someone else teach me, right? And it's not the end of the world. And this job has provided so much opportunity for discomfort in the unknown, because I'm a nonprofit person. I have killed every garden I've ever grown.
It's funny that you say that. I have a black thumb. I can't make anything live.
Yeah, it's not. I started hearing, I was like, please don't ask me anything about plants. Please don't. And then the first day, what is this? I'm like, it's green. I don't know. Like, and I was so scared. And I'm like, I have to know everything about gardening and farming to be able to be successful in this job. And let me tell you what, I don't. I have staff who are so willing to bring that expertise to the table because they don't want to have to bring my expertise to the table. They're like, I don't want to learn how to fundraise, or like, I don't want to learn how to create a hiring and onboarding process, or I don't want to, like, that's not, you do that and I'll do this and we'll work together. And so that was such a big fear for such a long time. And I think I was in a very like male dominated team for a while, that it was like, if you don't know, you're dumb, you know, that's like the phrasing that was used. And I had this guy tell me once at a printing office, I like remember it vividly, my first year working. He's like, who did you hire? She's so green. She's so green behind the ears. He said that to my boss, and my boss told me that. And I don't know why he told me that, but he was like, but don't worry, like, you'll get there. And in that situation, I was right. I was right about what I was talking about with the printing. And I remember thinking, oh, it doesn't matter how much I know. If I'm trying to prove myself to people, I'm going to be doing that for the rest of my life. So just focus on what you love and what you're good at, and then open your arms when you don't know. Don't like shut down.
Yeah, I like that, because we do have a tendency, especially as women, but in general, to feel like we have to know twice as much as everybody else about everything.
You're worthy to sit at the table.
And I think that mindset is changing a bit, in that a lot of times I'll find so many wonderful women and men that are willing to like help and grow and help you in your career. It's not
totally,
they're not trying to put you down. They're trying to raise you up.
And I have, great mentors across the board. It's definitely it's situational. It's time. It's what's going on in the world. There's a lot.
I think the situation has changed a bit, but yeah, I still feel like I need to know twice as much as everybody else in the room.
Right.
But I do try to lean on my team a little bit more. Pretty soon they know more than I do. And I just like, I don't know, ask them.
It's a great feeling. I'm like, I just want to hire people who are smarter than me.
Yep. So what about unique challenges because you were a woman? I know that we have things that are kind of unique to us, like, time off for childcare, like you mentioned the pay discrepancy or something like that. Did you face any unique challenges? Yeah,
something for me is when I'm on my period, my cramps are so awful, I can't work. I just can't. And it's a whole thing. And I know a lot of women experience that across the world, or any individual with a uterus. And I remember, it's just for so long, just being like, I just have to deal with this. Like, I just have to, and I can't say anything to anyone. And I just have to like run out of a meeting and puke and come back. And, it just felt so inhumane.
Sounds awful.
Right. And I think women deal with this all the time, just like being on your period at work, or going through menopause and having to go to work, like just these life things that, like, we know if men had uteruses that there'd be free tampons in every corner, and and so And so that was really unique to me, that was something I didn't feel like I could be vulnerable about, that I had to push through every month for, decades of my life. And I think any woman has their unique challenge of just the nature of being a woman, whatever that means. But I don't have kids, but I'm sure there'd be issues if I had children and childcare. But that corporate America is not set up to support. And what's so interesting is there's this like, oh, we can't, like if we did that, then we'd have to, I feel like that's always if we gave you days off for your cramps, then we'd have to give days off for constipation. Like and that's always how I felt those kinds of conversations went. And man, when I started here, for the first while, I was like, what are the policies? And I'm like, wait, I get to decide the policies. So we have a reproductive health and wellness leave here at our organization. You get paid days every month for whatever you need with your uterus, or with someone who has a uterus who's in your family or your roommate or whatever. You get it every month all year.
That's great. I was listening to Simon Sinek. He was talking about comforter days is what he said. And they were days where you just didn't feel like getting out of your bed. You wanted to stay in your comforter. And he's like, I don't make them lie to me and tell me that they're not coming into work. Because it's better for them to have a day off. They wouldn't be bringing their best self anyway.
Too. Because if you're lying to your boss about why you're gone, then you feel that, or at least I do. I'm like, I can't fully enjoy my day off. Right?
Yeah.
Totally.
Oh, I love that. What is the thing that you are the most proud of, Georgina?
I think currently I'm really proud of my garden.
Oh, I love that. Did you learn to grow green things?
I did.
I'm so proud.
So last year I had 27 tomato plants in my backyard. I had leeks and peppers and onions and cucamelons, and it was so fun. So very, very proud of my ability to learn how to grow things over the past couple of years, but also incredibly proud of my team and my staff here at Wasatch Community Gardens. They have gone through a lot of discomfort to ask a lot of these questions we've been talking about. What scares you? What's uncomfortable? What makes you feel like you can and can't succeed? And we really just laid it all out on the table and did a strategic plan with all 30 of us together. I mean, I've had to take a lot of time off the past 2 months just because of family stuff. And this team can just crank. I mean, they know what's expected of them. They know they can take time off still. They know they can do whatever they need to get the projects done and to take care of themselves. And I'm so proud of a staff that has that autonomy, that can say, I'm going to go hard with this. I need this kind of time. I have a staff member who loves to go skiing every Wednesday. I'm like, yeah, because time and hours are made up, but projects aren't. So finish the project. I don't care.
Yeah, and so kind of the work is your boss kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. And just trust each other and ask for help when you need it. And so really proud of my staff for leaning into that kind of leadership style and that kind of work culture, because it goes against a lot of what we're taught kind of at the beginning of like how to engage with your work.
It sounds like it's a really friendly environment. Are there any sort of like processes or procedures or rules or something like that you learned that kind of foster this environment? Because how do you replicate it if you don't have you, Georgina?
Yeah, I think so. We have 3 pillars as an organization right now. And one of them is called creating shareable models. It's how do we take things like processes and document them so we can share them with others. So I created this strategic planning process that anyone can do, from a small project to a whole org-wide thing, right? And I shared that with multiple organizations already. And so I think being able to, I don't think we prioritize processes, and that impacts our burnout. So when I started here, there wasn't a hiring process, there wasn't an onboarding process, there wasn't an exit process, any of that. And so every single person we hired, it took so much lift. And so I think identifying the processes that would prioritize and identify processes that contribute to your capacity, that build your capacity, is kind of the first thing that I went after. And man, I Google, I like everything. I'm just like, template of this, start me off on best practices for, like, I am Google girl. And it's so, and when people are like, hey, could we maybe try to form this? And I'm like, sure, we'll figure it out. And we just start seeing what other people's practices are. And so, yes, there is a way to maybe take advantage of some of the processes that we've documented here, because we're sharing them with anyone who wants them. But I think also just on an individual level, identifying those immediate processes that open up capacity for your sustainability as a human.
So you do the processes and you get those down, and then it gives you a little bit more leeway to
a whole foundation to stand on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the hiring process was so tedious and we weren't really hiring people. It was so cumbersome. And I interviewed all of my staff and I was like, what do we need? And they identified 11 positions that we need that we don't have. And so I budgeted and fundraised for 11 positions. And I said, we'll do this and we can get the work done if we're standing on this foundation of processes. And so we went through, and really, it has to be so collective and collaborative, I think, for any situation you're in. Because at that time we said, well, we can't really hire a lot of people at once. 2 weeks ago, we onboarded 4 people at the same time. And it was incredible. They're a cohort. They all know each other. They're getting along great. They know exactly what's expected of them, right? And so we're able to provide the community with 4 new people. One's an advocacy and justice director. One's doing marketing for us, right? And one's an educator out in the community. One's a volunteer director. These are really important positions that our community is going to benefit from because we took time to prioritize our own shit, right? We were like, okay, what do we, and there's a joke, it's up on my board right now, and it's like strategic plan is what it's called. And it says, plan the plan for the plan. And that really is like how I go about things. Like, how can we get all of these things in place so that when these ideas come or when our community needs us, we're in a position to respond and not say, oh, wait, hold on. We need to figure out how to get this posted first and get this taken care of. And, and it might seem small. And I keep thinking about that one because it's the hiring process, because we've been using it a lot here. But yeah, I think it provides, when you document and streamline processes, you're being more accountable to yourself and your community.
I like that. Do you mind sending me the material, the information? Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
I'll put it as a link to the podcast.
I also have a website that I have a bunch of templates on that I started years ago when people started asking me. So nonprofit budget template, like how to start a nonprofit template, all these things. So I can definitely share them.
Oh yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Georgina, any advice for if you have someone who's just starting down the path, the journey that you are already halfway down or further, what would you tell that young lady? What advice would you give her be successful like you?
I think that comparison is the thief of joy, and you don't have to duplicate anyone else's path to get where you need to go. Uh-huh. So don't waste your time comparing yourself to other people. Use curiosity instead of comparison, and invest in your authentic self. To me, those things open doors. When I stop worrying about how well I'm doing compared to someone else, I ask more questions. I think that's, and they're, community facing questions a lot of the time. That's how I would build myself and my success.
Oh, well, thank you, Georgina. Thank you so much for doing this interview with us today. If someone wants to, what's the best way to connect with you if they want to see all the cool things, LinkedIn or?
Yeah. I look at LinkedIn like twice a year, but I will add you. So yeah, you can add me on LinkedIn. I also have an Instagram. It's 2 Mom Sanctuary, all spelled out. We have 24 rescue animals and put a lot of information out there about gardening and the work we do with Wasatch and all of that. So that might be the most direct way. Or you can look at the Wasatch Community Gardens website, wasatchgardens.org. Has my contact information if you ever want to come take a tour or see what we're doing here, or just pick brains about different processes. We're really excited to share. So any of those ways.
Thank you. Thanks, Georgina, for your time today. I really appreciate it. It's been just great getting to know you. And maybe one of these days I too will be able to grow something green, right?
Yes, I have faith.